What's up, YouTube? Welcome back to No Small Thing, the podcast and YouTube channel dedicated to helping you live a less certain, more curious life. I'm Scott, and this week I'm actually just doing a brief video intro to a conversation I had with my brother last week about what I'm calling the art life. So, in just a second, we're actually going to transition to this conversation. And the reason I wanted to have it is because he has basically been posted up in this three-car garage for like 3 years now, creating all sorts of different type of art. And every time I visit, I have it in my mind that I want to have a conversation with him about what he's doing in there. And I want to create some stuff where I essentially shine a spotlight on all that he's doing and sort of his philosophy behind it. And even in the conversation reflection I had on YouTube recently about David Lynch, artists are often on my mind when I think about curiosity. It seems that art is one of the best inroads into curiosity. And, you know, we've been making this podcast for over 5 years now. So if you actually want to listen to our podcast, we have over 220 episodes, I think, on Apple Podcasts and Spotify and all that. It's called No Small Thing. And we are really interested in how to get curious and how to get other people curious. And we're always sort of pursuing essentially our own curiosity about how to get curious. So this is just a conversation I had with my brother, and he has a really fascinating backstory about essentially how he was pursuing art growing up when he was young. Actually, when he was 10 years old, he won an art contest to meet President Bill Clinton at the time. It's not like I'm super interested in Bill Clinton or presidents, but that was just a really intense experience for him. And then he won a bunch of other contests. He won our family a trip to Disneyland, which is, I think, a lot of pressure for a younger person to have. And he reflects a little bit on that. But in this three-car garage, he's created this fascinating environment that you'll see. He's sort of ambivalent. You'll hear it in this conversation about calling it an art studio. But I think maybe this was the first time where we sort of agreed that it's an art studio. And he's painting, he's doing tons of different multimedia stuff. He's creating hoodies and t-shirts, and then a ton of music too. So he has a music studio set up in there. He's written and created and produced over like 300 original songs and more. He's got these stored in all sorts of different files and different hard drives, and it's actually really hard to get these files organized because I'm constantly trying to like pick out some of the best songs that we could potentially put on SoundCloud. And I actually think he has a SoundCloud. Anyways, his name is Skyler Gronholtz. That's my younger brother. He's 40, but he is my younger brother by 5 years. And I'll put some links in the description of the YouTube channel. You can follow him on Instagram. It's Sky on Art and SoundCloud and a few other things. But the art he is making is pretty darn interesting and cool. So I wanted to give you guys all a heads up about this video too, because it is this conversation, but I'm still using my old like iPhone 10 mini to record all of this stuff. And I don't want to let getting a fancy camera get in the way of me recording. So for the time being, I'm just doing that. But during the recording, you'll see my phone kept running out of storage. So it would shut down, and then I have to delete a bunch of stuff, like a bunch of apps, and clean up my phone and then start recording again. So hopefully that doesn't throw you off too much. It just kind of goes in and out of our conversation. Aside from that, I'll just say, I don't quite know how this is going to work. I have this YouTube channel, and then I'm putting up our podcast conversations, which are entirely different things. But I think I'll also put the audio of this on our podcast feed. And last week I had a really great conversation with my friend Daniel about archetypes. And so if you're listening to this and if you think that sounds really interesting, we essentially use the concept of archetypes to get curious, and showed how thinking about archetypes can be a great inroad into curiosity about symbolism and meaning and all the things we're playing with on a daily basis with language. So if that sounds at all interesting to you, go check out No Small Thing on Spotify, Apple, iTunes, or wherever you get your podcasts. I really enjoyed having that conversation, and I think it's worth listening to. So I'm letting you know if that sounds interesting to you. It's definitely worth checking out. So let's see if there's anything else I need to say about this. I think the conversation is self-explanatory. I think I don't know where I'm going to put this in terms of editing, but towards the end, we also attempted a short studio tour of the space. And I really want to do more of this. I think spending time with Skyler in this art studio for whatever we're doing here would be a really great use of our time, just in terms of enjoying what he's creating in there, and then also continuing to have conversations about the art life, how art is a great inroad to curiosity. I think these are things that are definitely worth talking about, and I think you all, if you're new to Skyler and to this channel, will really enjoy seeing some of his stuff and hearing about his process. So I think that's all I need to say. I think without further ado, I'll be back with some other random topic next week. For the time being, I think I really want to keep talking about Kendrick. At some point, we're gonna have to move on from that conversation. But since the last time I've recorded, so much stuff has happened with Kendrick and Drake, and I think even in my mind, after the archetype conversation that I had last week, I'd be really interested in terms of creating a curious space here over YouTube about what are the archetypes of Kendrick and Drake. Like what do they represent? Not just their pure personality or what they stand for, but how do we hold space for sort of the pop star and sort of the purist in our heads? And then what are some alternatives to these archetypes sort of in the middle? I think I've mentioned this in the podcast before, but I continue to think about No Name, the rapper, as something that is outside of the binary or outside of the spectrum of rap. And she actually had a song on her last album where she was sort of, I don't know, in a way calling out Kendrick and Beyonce and others, including herself, for their intense participation in capitalism. So even though I love Kendrick and I love the music he makes, and I loved that he performed at the Super Bowl, it's also complicated because there's so much collusion with nefarious forces. And I love that Donald Trump was in attendance watching Kendrick. Anyways, that's where my mind is right now. That's where my curiosity is going. And I use these topics as a way to pursue my curiosity, and then also sort of hopefully invite you all into other forms of curiosity. If you think this is rambling and you're not interested, hopefully you've already skipped ahead to my conversation with my brother. But aside from that, I really hope you all enjoy this. It's a long, fun, interesting, meandering conversation with my brother, who I really am so in awe of and impressed with, just in terms of the life he's creating for himself and the art that he's making. So, yeah, I really hope you take the time to enjoy the conversation, and I'll be back probably soon with some more long-form reflections on Kendrick and other things. So, yeah, thanks for watching. All right.
Are we recording?
Yeah.
Oh,
and
wow.
Both. We're recording audio and video.
How about that?
Okay, so how can you describe can you describe where we are right now?
Okay, so we're in the garage of this place is a magical place. It's the place of dreams, and
Shangri-La.
It's Shangri-La. It's still under construction, but right now we got a pinball machine that I got mainly for you and Mace. But maybe I didn't think about this until I got it, but maybe I'll all of a sudden start getting good at pinball and be able to keep up with you guys. Over in that corner over there is going to be and is kind of already functioning as the music space to record. And yeah, it's also getting wrapped in plywood. So the whole place will be sort of plywood. I'm even thinking of doing the garage door, although the garage door I think might be littered with all of my early on paintings when I was just sort of starting to throw paint and process stuff, and but it's messy. It's very messy, and that's not permanent necessarily. But it's kind of, there's a lot of things thrown around. And
do you consider this a studio?
I don't know if I'll ever consider any space that I'm in a studio.
Is it too lofty to say?
I think so. I don't know why. I don't know why. I mean,
I consider this a studio.
do you?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think technically
how
it
could I
is.
give you telepathically from my mind what I consider to be a studio?
Yeah. Oh, I see it now.
Yeah, there you go.
I don't know why. I think coming to this so kind of late to the game, I don't know why. I there's a feeling of fraudulence or I had a bedroom studio. Maybe it started there. It was like this is my old bedroom. You
Yeah.
know, like why would I want to call this a studio now? All of a sudden, it was
And
just
that was more of like a music studio for
Yeah,
you. And,
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I guess call it the garage, the spot,
I do. I mean,
the place.
I don't know why I feel I should just call it a studio.
I think so. I maybe we haven't established that. Maybe we're establishing it right now.
Yeah.
This is the studio.
This is the
Maybe
studio.
this is the inauguration or what word do I want to use?
Let's cheers to it.
Cheers to the studio. We're breaking it in.
I mean, I was thinking about calling it the Parliament for a while.
Oh, right.
Because
Owls.
yeah, there was these owls,
Yeah.
and I learned that a flock of owls is called a parliament. And then around this neighborhood, all the front yards except ours and a couple others that were like treated with fertilizers and things have been preserved. But crows just started wreaking havoc on the front yards. And then I learned that a flock of crows is called a murder.
Yeah.
And a flock of ravens is called a...
Ooh. Studio.
Oh no, it's so good though. It's called like
Anybody that's listening, Google.
it's really good.
I'm recording
it's,
my
it's
phone, so I can't Google.
it's unbelievable. It's should I no.
No.
It's the murder and then it's like the
Parliament versus the murder.
it's like the angry or something. It's
What's
really
di-
it's a wild
what's,
word.
what I feel like crows they sort of run the skies. Like if something
Yeah.
gets in the way of the crows,
Yeah.
they really team up. I've seen them team up on all sorts of
I
things.
know.
You know, you can see like a big bald eagle and he comes in and they're like, nope,
Yeah.
I've seen them team up on owls.
Yeah.
You know.
Well,
That's
what's
because
so-
they're like in groups.
and they're really smart.
Yeah.
Like if I were to like have a BB gun and would shoot a crow,
He'd remember you.
all of them would
Or
know
she.
me. Yeah. They would all know me, and
Yeah.
they would come after me, and like they would like dive bomb me when I get out of my car and
Yeah.
things like this happens. Yeah, it's really wild.
Okay, so I think the prompt for the day.
Yeah.
I'll probably title this because I've never had an episode about it,
Yeah,
and we can riff on it together. But I would say or ask, what do you consider to be the art life,
the art life.
if it even exists, or if you can summon the spirit of the art life while you're working in here in the studio?
Yeah.
What is it that we're summoning? What does the art life entail?
Man.
And I suppose while you're thinking, I can say it's only in my mind because of David Lynch.
Yeah.
I'm sure people like Tom Sachs and all sorts of other artists talk about the art life, but it seemed to be something that really grabbed David Lynch, and it was something that seemingly I mean the crazy thing is I don't live the art life. But I would like to
Do you
think that
not?
I would bring the spirit of the art life into my life.
Well, you certainly brought it to me.
Well, that's nice.
Yeah.
Well, what is it then? What is it? What did I bring?
Yeah. Oh man. I could say what the art life isn't,
Yeah.
and what that did to me.
Yeah. That sounds great.
Yeah.
And yeah, go for it.
So
That obviously is the first thing that came to, well, one of the things that came to your mind.
so when I was when I was 10, around that age, until basically when I became a teenager, I sort of gave up on art. But before that, man, I still remember. It's one of the earliest memories. I still remember what it felt like to color inside the lines in a coloring book, and how magical it was to watch these shapes get filled with color. Like it was just wild, and and I loved it, and I was very content. I didn't need to have friends. I had you and Shane, and I had Mary next door, and Heath down the street, and then that was it. I was good. I feel like I would have been
siblings
good.
and neighborhood friends.
Yeah. And then and I start getting accolades from the world. That I'm onto something here, and
making things kind of innocently.
Yeah.
And just kind of whatever is making you feel good, like seeing color on the page.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and then I'll maybe just briefly describe this for the podcast.
Yeah, go,
So I just found a letter of that I won another art thing that I totally forgot that it was like I don't even remember. It was at some place in the mall or something.
Oh, right.
And won like a couple $100 to shop there. But so I and then a Disney store shopping spree because mom wanted a jean jacket apparently, and and I don't really remember, but and then I won and I divvied it up between all of us, right?
Right. Yeah. I remember that. I remember.
What did you get?
That's a memory unlocked. Oh. Just a bunch of Disney stuff, and I guess just to clarify for everybody, not only did Skyler win several art awards before like you turned 10 or something like that, but our mom also won a trip to Disneyland.
Oh, right.
We went to Disney World based on a Good Housekeeping.
Yeah.
It was a very strange thing to experience as a kid.
Yeah.
Because we didn't have any money, so then all of a sudden you win something.
Yeah.
And so it was very strange to go to the Disney store and be able to buy things.
Yeah.
I think we'd go to like the Disney store around Christmas time every year, and it would be like get a little trinket, and then we'd sort of drool over all the other things.
Yeah. I want the dolly in the corner.
yeah. That was our vibe. And there was just no way we were ever going to go to like the Disneyland resort and stay there for many days.
Right.
It was a huge deal for us to just go for a day.
I mean, when we were in the Grand Marshals in the parade and we got to stay in that one hotel that was like, that had the monorail.
It was the Contemporary Hotel.
It was really pretty cool.
Yeah.
And we ordered pizza, I remember, and like they brought it to our door and we were like, whoa. And that, so here in Washington, for all you people around the world, there's a grocery store called QFC, and they every year they still do it, but now like the prizes are like you get a it's like you get a free hamburger or something. Like it's really petty.
And you got like $500 or something.
No, that's
another trip.
Yeah, that was to Disneyland.
Yeah, that's crazy.
So you can submit a design and every Christmas, every holiday, and if your design wins, that's the design on all the grocery bags. And I drew a snowman holding a grocery bag, and on the grocery bag was the snowman holding the grocery bag.
That's pretty meta.
Yeah, it really was.
Snowman Inception.
Yeah. And in the corner there was a little dreidel thing spinning.
Yeah.
No, just kidding. And
an Inception reference. I didn't get it at first.
This is not called a dreidel though. I don't know what those.
Is it though? Something. Top something. Yeah.
But the big one that that I got to represent Seuss Creek Elementary, and man, it's wild. I found the letter or email that Karen, the teacher, Karen, what was her name? Karen?
Oh.
Karen?
Yeah, Miss. I just call her Miss Curran.
Miss Karen. Yeah, I don't know why I'm calling her Karen.
Yeah.
I don't even know if
Curran?
that's her front.
I don't either.
name.
I just know her. I just know her as Miss Karen or Curran.
It's not Karen.
That was my
It could be
fifth grade
Karen
teacher.
Curran. Hi, my name's Karen Curran. It's not good. So yeah. So she was my language teacher or writing or reading teacher because I was so behind.
Oh, got it.
Yeah, so I had to go to like these special classes.
She was my fifth grade teacher.
Yeah.
And a reading specialist for you.
Yeah.
Okay.
And she would teach me how to.
Also, I want to say we were out in the garage, the studio.
Yes.
and it's cold.
Yes.
So you hear me sniffling.
Yeah.
And my hands are cold, but I like I also feel very alive.
I do too. I do too. Yeah. Yeah. So anyways, she saw my drawings or something, and she got a letter. I don't know, I have to get into it, but basically, every school in Washington State selected a student to represent their school and to draw how they understood world peace. And illustrate world peace.
Yeah.
And it was for this APEC conference happening at the Seattle Art Museum that Bill Clinton put together, I think, or I don't know who put it together, but it was a big deal. All these world leaders were coming to do a conference to meet about world peace.
Yeah.
Do you remember much about that?
I don't really understand what it was. We could look it up. Obviously,
Yeah.
I'm sure.
Asian Pacific Economic Corporation.
Yeah.
Conference.
Yeah.
Committee.
I know Bill Gates was there. I barely knew who Bill Gates was, but Shane and I were just running around the whole place, just like throwing ourselves at people and laughing and running away and introducing ourselves to whoever.
Did you guys talk to Bill Gates?
I think we were standing next to him, ready to introduce ourselves if he conveyed any sense that he was going to wrap up his conversation, but I don't think he did. So we just ran away.
And I remember someone pointing at him saying, "That's the richest man in the world."
Yeah, the Sultan of Brunei was there.
Oh, right.
I think that was the richest man in the world at the time.
And then Bill, and it was really cool. Bill Gates and the Sultan of Brunei, they went head to head. They
had a wrestling match.
They had a wrestling match. It was really cool. In money.
Yeah.
In a bet of money. What was and yeah, I would love to know your experience of that.
Well, I think all these things we're describing from childhood are pretty surreal. It's hard to even imagine that actually happened.
I know.
So I would almost put it in the same category as Chuck E. Cheese. For me, I probably was like 14 or 15.
Yeah.
I had braces on still. I think.
Yeah, you were in junior high.
I was just running around all over the place, and some of these little magical things had happened to our family. And it just became kind of standard.
Yeah.
And it actually didn't seem that out of the realm of possibility to be meeting Bill Clinton.
It felt the same as running around church, like after a Sunday or something.
Yeah, I just remember thinking, and I wasn't like, I can't think of it as like, whoa, I can't believe we're meeting the president. My most memorable element is running around the place with Shane. It's like once we did all the formalities, everybody was focused on you.
Yeah.
And Shane and I just ran around.
Yeah. Were you?
There was free food. There were chefs.
Yeah. Were you envious or anything like that? Did you ever have any of those thoughts?
No, not that I can access.
Yeah. Dang. No, just kidding. It's like
I mean,
I'm
as
really
an
glad to
older
hear that.
sibling, I think it's just like, wow, cool.
Yeah.
You know? Cool.
Yeah.
I wasn't an aspiring artist at that point. I wasn't thinking about entering competitions, and I think everybody has an inner artist, and it does seem at some point you took on the mantle or the reputation of sorts of being an artist.
Yeah, yeah.
And I didn't, and in some ways I'd probably love to recover that. I
Yeah.
mean, this whole
Did you feel
podcast-
like you couldn't because of me?
No. I mean, it just sounds so. I think. I mean, a whole other episode would be getting less more curious about.
Yeah.
Birth order.
Yeah.
Like, what is it like to orient yourself around an older sibling? And what is it? Because it sounds so insensitive, but I think the classic older sibling is your younger siblings.
Yeah.
Are a bit of a
nuisance.
Lowercase.
Yeah. Lowercase.
Part of your life. You know, like they're there.
Yeah. Yeah. No, and I think that's I think that like downplaying the whole thing.
I was always really proud of you. I mean, I almost thought of you because you were so much younger than me, 5 years younger, as like my own kid.
Yeah, interesting.
Anything that was happening to you, I was very proud. I was like, that's my younger brother.
Yeah.
I taught him that.
Yeah. I remember that. Yeah.
Not that I taught you art, but I just think that I felt I felt like I could take a little credit.
Yeah. That's so cool. Yeah. No, it would be an interesting conversation to have.
When you started having some of your emerging humor in your middle school years, that was something I was very proud of. I was like, my brother's so funny.
Yeah, right on. That's so cool.
Yeah,
man, those are magical days. Yeah, so basically, I was selected. My design hung in the Seattle Asian Art Museum, for a year, I think. I've been putting lately. I think I haven't looked into it, but I'm totally BSing. But I'm the youngest person to ever have their work hung in the Seattle Art Museum.
That's really fun though, because Mason and I always say we're Seattle's #1 podcast.
Yeah, see,
and
exactly.
There's just no way to qualify that,
Right,
but
right.
I like saying it.
Yeah, it sounds great.
We think we're #1.
Yeah, I mean, and it's almost like that. Yeah, there's something beautiful about that. It is yeah. So yeah, and when my design got selected, all the local news stations. One came to our house.
Right.
One came to my school.
I forgot all about.
Oh,
this
you
stuff.
did?
Yeah. That is true though.
Man.
That's wild.
Yeah. Yeah, it was, and I was a total nobody. Like, I was not popular, and and all of a sudden, like, these news people are coming, and I remember like the before they left, they had all of the fourth graders in the various classes come out and walk down the hall, and he was talking with me, or the newscaster anchor, or what do you call those?
All of the above.
Yeah, and then I had
reporter.
all of my student body with me, or not the student body, but the fourth graders, and it was so surreal. Yeah. So
I also, we're having all sorts of little
I know.
detours here, but I don't know if seems to be a very subtle hierarchy of popularity in the fourth grade level, but I don't remember thinking about things in terms of popularity at that point.
Yeah, you're right.
It started to probably emerge middle of fifth grade.
Yes.
But I mean,
same
to
here.
say you're not popular.
Interesting.
It's like,
yeah.
Was anybody popular?
Yeah.
Can you think of kids that were popular?
Right. Yeah, it seemed like all of a sudden people knew me afterward, like they all recognized me or something. I mean, it was very minor.
That's be a hard thing for a class of fourth graders to even comprehend.
Yeah. I mean, literally, this is in my memory. But at recess after that, all the kids were chasing me out.
Oh.
It felt very surreal, and it was very fun.
Gosh,
yeah.
no, I think I remember that. And as you're talking, it all sounds like it all sounds like you're like a child star. Or
I know, it's so silly.
Well, it's not silly. It's I think it has the rhythm or the flavor of something kind of tragic, where you. Like I'm thinking for some reason of like somebody like Drew Barrymore, who was in E.T., and then in her middle life she sort of fell on hard times.
Yeah,
it was like a lot of the story surrounding Drew Barrymore for so long was like, oh, she was this child star, maybe too much pressure.
Yeah.
Now she's doing well. As far as I can tell.
Yeah.
But I think there's probably hundreds of stories.
Macaulay Culkin.
Yeah, fell on hard times.
Yeah.
Too much pressure, or it's weird to be that famous that young.
Yeah.
This wasn't even the thing I thought about talking about, but this is already interesting.
Yeah. I know we have a.
I almost feel like what you're describing so far is what the art life is for a kid.
Yeah.
It's sort of freedom. It's sort of It's interesting that you even had sort of the audacity to do these things.
I know.
I'm gonna enter a competition.
Yeah.
What?
I know.
It's such a different story than mine.
Yeah.
And so whenever we have chance to really sit down and think about it, it's interesting just to get into your world and mine and think like,
same,
wow,
yeah.
Whoa.
Yeah, I know. It's even just you saying about being at that night at the art museum, like you and Shane running around, like it's crazy. It makes the memory sort of become 3D almost. That was real. That was actually happening, and getting perspectives from other people. It's pretty cool. So it was the last thing I'll say is that those things were really fun. And I think mom and dad did do a good job of like making it not a big deal. Like I never felt pressured to continue being an artist. In fact, if anything, I sort of a small, not even a gripe, but something that I have thought about is like I think I wish mom and dad maybe would have nudged me more in that direction when I started saying like, oh, because I did have like this reputation. Oh, Skyler is the artist in the school. That like a guy like Willie Ireton, who was an extraordinary drawer. Like he could draw. I felt like he was always better than me. And he would come in and be like, look at this football helmet that I drew, and I'd be like, oh, that's cool. So then I would try to draw one, and it was terrible compared to his.
Right.
And so when I like after I won that trip to Disneyland with the QFC bag, I was like, okay, I'm a hack. Like I'm not I'm not nearly as good as these other kids, and so
okay.
yeah. So
You hung up.
I have it happen all the time because I'm making stuff and using GarageBand and have voice memos or through the roof.
We got cut off, everybody, and it's going to probably continue to get dim in here because if anybody's watching this on video, but because it's getting dark. But we're having a nice, cozy time.
Nice, cozy time.
We got cut off because my phone ran out of storage, and we were having a really profound conversation.
Yes, about weasels going pop.
I guess we were getting into less certain, more curious, and sort of the themes of No Small Thing even. And I am interested in having these types of conversations, like what is the art life? What is art? What's the significance of art? What's the importance of art? Because for this last week, Daniel and I talked about archetypes.
Yeah.
I think these are all the types of things that can get us in a curious, playful state.
Yeah.
For whatever purposes we want.
Yeah, that I would like to talk about that, those
Okay.
archetypes at some point too.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you can listen to our episode.
Yeah. The art life is one of curiosity. I mean, for sure, I think. But don't you?
Yeah, and I think part of the stuff that we missed when the phone shut off was we were saying that something that feels constricting or insecure or stressful even.
Yeah.
I was quoting David Lynch saying it kind of closes the tube or stress.
Yeah.
I mean, if it's sort of a fight or flight biological thing, I've been experiencing this in my life a lot lately just because I'm so focused on work and grad school. You basically have enough time to take care of yourself, not too much time for like spacious, relaxed, soft focus, curiosity, playfulness. Yeah. I can try to be a little playful in my internal brain when I'm driving in the car on the way to work, but I don't.
Man, have you ever had? When would you say in your life, if ever, you felt the aperture was wide? And
well, it's interesting. I wasn't planning on saying any of this, but that's what's so fun about recording the podcast is we were talking before we started about what is the self, and that should be an episode at some point because I wrote this big paper about what is the self. But I do think it seems that some of the best thinkers out there have defined the self as having something to do with relationships, starting with being in a body.
I'd love to read that paper.
Oh, sure. Being born in a body, essentially, like being in your mother's womb.
Yeah.
The moment you come out, you're starting to define a self or cultivate a sense of self in relation to other things.
Yeah.
And so I think when I have been hanging around people like you or other folks that draw out a more playful, spontaneous part of me, that's when a more alive sense of artfulness or curiosity or freedom can come through.
I do that for you?
Oh, yeah. I mean, almost in a scary way.
Why?
I think you could say that maybe part of good creativity is boundaries and also not. I mean, it's both and for sure.
Yeah, you need boundaries, I think.
Yeah, or a frame or a container.
Yeah.
And also again, also not, because I mean, how do you define the boundary? It's like, if you're going to define the boundary as like, oh, a certain medium, today I'm working with paint.
Right.
And you're
or a
not
canvas,
like,
that would be a boundary.
And if you're going to sit down and make something, you're like, well, what if I made something with blood? It's like, well, you don't have the blood. I mean, you have to, if you want to make something, use the paint.
I mean, that is a big, if making music, like I want to go write a song. So I'm going to bring my guitar and my voice. Nowadays, it's like I'm going to go into Logic, and it's so it's an eternal world. It's you got so many
right.
possibilities.
No, that's true.
That it shuts creativity down. I think. I mean, it that is in a counterintuitive way a thing that closes the aperture.
I really feel that, because I have that little Akai MIDI player.
Yeah.
And it was so cool when I got it because of all the endless possibilities. But now I look at it and it kind of freaks me out.
Yeah.
I'm like,
yeah.
When I get started on it and I plug it in and I see all the options on my GarageBand. So first of all, I know there's already, just in my little GarageBand app, thousands of things I can do with this little keyboard.
It's awesome.
And I'm sure you relate to this.
Yeah.
There's infinite plugins I could go look on in the internet and find more sounds.
Yeah. Yeah, I know.
And it's like, do you want to sit down and make something? Well, there's just too many.
I know.
It's like if somebody said, here, make something with the basic classic Crayola box.
Yes.
Or here's 80 colors.
Yes.
It's like,
Yeah. Well, and there's something limiting about it. Here's a box of, here's 6 crayons.
Yeah.
There's some things that, for me at least, I think it's kind of, for most people, it's like, it's like I get to be innovative with this.
Yeah.
If I have every single color already made in a crayon, then it's limiting or something.
So I mean, I would say Mace does this for me. Lots of people. If anybody's listening, if I'm friends with you, most likely bring out a certain playful curiosity.
Yeah.
But I think there are people that do it even more than others. Daniel, who I just recorded this archetype episode, every time we start talking, I think part of it, and you probably relate to this in your own way, is that ability to yes and everything. And I think most people don't. I mean, Daniel was saying the other day, we were talking about archetypes, and it's like the world theoretically is mostly populated with Enneagram 6s.
Oh,
and
interesting.
no hate to Enneagram 6s, but generally, it seems as if they're the ones sort of kind of creating the rules and the containers, which can be helpful. If we didn't have that.
Right.
I mean, I'm going to substitute teach every day, and there are communities and peoples and energies and minds that have created this system.
Yeah.
Where buses are showing up on time every day. There's teachers. There's a schedule.
Yeah.
Now, my mind is always going to want to be tweaking that.
Yeah.
And you really can't. I mean, it is a locked in system.
Yeah.
So I think when I want to have a conversation that I'm interested in having, you could call it like an artful conversation, it's going to be wondering about things that I have not been allowed to wonder about, or generating new thoughts, learning new things. And if I can be with somebody where I'm gonna say something out loud where I'm just wondering, and they go, well, that's not true.
Oh man.
Or that's a wrong way. I think I'm like, well, I'm not interested. It's like, even if I said something out there, I love somebody that go, oh, it's kind of like, maybe I don't understand, or maybe I disagree, but I can see it from my own. And with you and Daniel and a few others, I just feel
awesome.
like it's nothing really shuts down the conversation.
Yeah.
And I would say, just in terms of boundaries with you, sometimes I'm just like, just the boundary of time.
Oh, right. I know. Yeah.
I'll start to get anxious sometimes. I'm like, is there a sense of time in the room right now? I think I might have to go home and go to bed. But I also think for you, compared to my life currently, and I'm doing a lot of the talking all of a sudden, but
no, it's great.
This might be an interesting road into what you're doing here in the garage. And I do think it seems to be what other artists that I know about are up to, is time is different here. Time is different in the studio. Time is different in this room.
Yeah. Someone just walked by, and she's always been like a kind of energy of like that's intimidating.
Okay.
And kind of like maybe Enneagram 6 or sort of is one that's like very briskly walking and, you know, don't get in my way. But just like
A little skeptical of the studio, maybe.
yeah, maybe. Yeah. But so I like, all I said was like, I think I said, "Oh, that's a really cool jacket." That's all I said.
Yeah.
And now every time she walks by, we wave. She smiles at me.
Oh,
and
it just
like,
took a little
it's
friendliness.
A little compliments, man.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That goes a long way.
They really they can turn an enemy into a friend. Like,
Yeah.
And
That's that guy that likes my jacket.
yeah. Sorry about that.
No, that's great. So, yeah, I mean, maybe that's part of the whatever this means secret sauce of being able to be in a place like this and create. Because I guess maybe just to compliment you or to, I think sometimes part of the challenge of being in here for you, and you have your own way of talking about this, I'm sure, is the isolation. And if you had in an imaginary world many people a day stopping through and giving you some feedback,
Yeah.
it'd be not in terms of like you're doing a good job
Yeah.
or like keep it up or like there's a quota,
Yeah.
but just like wow and oh and,
Yeah. I think
like to be an observer of this space is pretty amazing.
Oh,
You know,
man, thanks.
because every time I come back, so much has been done, and I think, well, I mean, what is your sense of time? How does that contribute to this space or your sense of art creating?
I know I have a thing up there. It says our time is limited.
Yeah,
I think that is something that I want to get better at, of having constraints of you know, if you have an hour to paint, if you only have an hour, then you know, it really has a great way of deleting the noise, and the you know the distractions. Like,
Yeah.
it's like, okay, I only have an hour. It doesn't matter that whatever, you know. But when I have 24 hours, it can feel I don't know.
it can feel almost like the MIDI player with too many options.
Yes, yeah. Like I yeah, or that I'll get just, you know, I'll get wrapped up in and whatever. I mean, yeah, it's time is something that I'm not great at. Or maybe a better way of saying it, because I'm trying to change my inner narrative of such negativity. I have a different relationship with time than it seems a lot of people.
Yeah.
And yeah.
Well, I guess I was trying to say that I was trying to say it in a profoundly positive way.
Oh, cool.
Like for you, it does seem to be something that generally works for the purposes of whatever this is.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Thanks.
Yeah. And it does make me sad how us humans in general orient around time and what we do with time.
Man.
Because it does seem very manic and frantic, and it's like time could be the most overwhelming thing to think about, so we have to manage it. We have to get it managed.
Yeah.
How do you manage your time?
Yeah.
You know, I mean, it's like, I mean, if we really paid attention to how much people are talking about time all day.
Oh, man. And not just talking about it, having visceral feelings about it.
Yeah.
That, like, you know, I mean, and I know I'm not, I know I know I've hurt a lot of people because I show up late, or because I don't value, or I don't think about it valuing, but it comes off as not valuing other people's time, and that maybe that is actually it doesn't matter how I feel about it. That is a fact. Is I don't value other people's time and stuff. But no, I mean, I think you know, when I first started coming out here, I was in a state of mind where I was not just that I was very excited to die. Like I couldn't wait to get out of here because because I lost Ona, and she was the first person, at least maybe not the first person, but she did it in such a great way to come along and show me and that I'm an artist, and like, you know, in the same way that we were sort of trained to be in ministry, she was trained to be an artist. Her medium was with words, but she every Sunday she would go to a different art museum or what's another word for art museum? Yeah, art museum.
I wouldn't even begin to think of another word for art museum.
Yeah, her dad would want would ask for her to write up what are some pieces that stood out and why.
Yeah.
And that was her church.
That's cool.
Yeah, and so like when
very different.
Yeah. So when she unequivocally was like, you're an artist. I mean, it's like more than maybe most people that I've met. It was really saying something, man. And like, so when she died, it was like, man, it was like, well, there goes that dream, because it was just starting to come. It was like she came and found me out in the void of non-artist.
Yeah.
And brought me aboard and sailed back to my original path, and dropped me off and then sailed away. And it was, and I thought that meant that the dream, that so too is the art life. Okay, well then that's done. And not even, it was like, okay, I want to quickly swim and try to find her and get back on board. Yeah. So I was coming out here, very, in the midst of grief and feeling of very, very lost, and not mainly what I'm trying to say is I didn't want to live, and so initially painting was a way for me to like feel connected with Ona. I felt like when I would throw paint, maybe more even than writing music, I would feel very close with her. Oh. And I would get, and that was just initially, I rigged up a fan. I took the motor and would basically put these little canvases on the motor, and I would put some paint and then watch it move around the canvas. Yeah. And like, man, it was like that was I would get wrapped up in the flow state with that. And so
that's really sweet. I mean, it's all obviously is really tragic.
Yeah.
And we could do maybe a whole episode on that someday.
Sure.
So, to continue to process and share for those that might, I mean, this sounds pretty wild, but do an episode on death.
Yeah.
We've never done that before.
That's my stuff, man.
Yeah. And I guess it's healing, it's therapeutic, whatever word people want to use for it. But gosh, there's so much coming up for me as you talk, just because, you were sort of being brought back to life.
Yeah.
as you're doing it?
So all of a sudden I was like, wow, look at all these paintings I've made.
Yeah.
And
Sign of life.
yeah, and then we reconnected.
Yeah.
I remember going to Spokane, and we were on the drive. I think I maybe I'm making this up, but you were saying that you wanted to live the artist life, like you were. I don't know if you were. No, you were more in Adam Phillips. Was that more Adam Phillips?
Yeah.
But you were basically saying you want to live the artist life, and I was like, well, I want that too,
Yeah.
like yeah. So you really kind of Ona got me back on the path, and then and so I kept diving back in the ocean trying to swim after her, and you sort of came along and like was like, hey man, you check this out. Look at this path that you're on, man. Like, yeah, you really did. You were very instrumental in me, feeling like I could pursue this as a lifestyle, I guess, or, yeah, you really did, a lot for me.
Well, I mean, again, I just think the themes are, I mean, it's interesting to get back into that headspace because now that was almost like 3 years ago that we were going to Spokane.
Yeah,
and
wild.
I think at that time I really was thinking about having a type of career or life where I would have more space to create. And I do think I can head in a direction where that is going to be possible.
Yeah.
And right now it's just a completely different mindset, but I do think my sort of curiosity about art and creators, and I guess in our own way we're all creators, has just naturally led me towards conversations with you.
Yeah.
About, well, I mean, all the things we share, like whether it's podcasts, we both do seem to be very curious in our own way about how people get to creating.
Yeah. Yeah.
Tetragrammaton and other things.
Yeah.
I guess, I mean, you could script any questions that you want to be asked.
Sure.
I just have natural questions.
Yeah.
I think what I'm wondering is to map on curiosity to this space and what you're doing. Like, what is it for you to just come out here with a type of loose intention?
Yeah.
You're like, I'm going to do something. It seems to come through with a lot of tinkering. And I guess what's appealing to me in terms of what I seem to observe about your process is you really aren't hell bent on creating a very particular thing.
Yeah.
So I mean, is it possible to sort of describe the mindset of just what it is to come out here and be like, I'm not going to fix something today. I'm not going to build something that somebody's ordered. I'm going to paint. I'm going to make something.
Man, it's a great question. This is like the first time that I'm getting to, out loud at least, really kind of almost validate or think about a process that I might have. So it's really cool. I appreciate it a lot.
Yeah. That's it. That's the episode, everybody. Skyler's going to go think about that.
So like coming out here, like, I think there's a few different approaches. Sometimes it's like I'm out in the world and like I found, oh man, it was like it was an envelope that was on the pavement. It was kind of, it wasn't raining out anymore, but so it was kind of like matted onto the pavement, and it caught my eye, and I like peeled it off the pavement, and it had a little note. Had a little note on it that said couldn't really quite make it out, but it was definitely a phone number, and like saying like we should hang out or something. But on the envelope, it had such cool texture of like the road, and like the way it looked, and so like I I could collect those kinds of things, and then want to come back and try to make something like that, or sometimes it's you know, I'll go to Home Depot and be at Home Depot, and we'll like see a wood. Like I really lately. I mean, is this the question? Can I talk about this?
Talk about whatever you want. I think follow. You're being creative and artistic just by talking. I mean, follow wherever it goes. Like,
okay, cool.
The question is just a way to get you talking.
But like I'll be at Home Depot and like we'll see, you know, like this stuff. This is a butcher block oil and stain, and like so I've been painting a lot on pieces of plywood.
Yeah.
And you know, so like you can have a whole 4x8 feet. You know, the thin stuff, the like 16th of an inch or eighth of an inch, you know, for less than $20, and you could cut that up in, you know, 10 different size canvases, or have the whole thing be your canvas, and that's really cool. And it's cheap.
Yeah, like I guess canvases are expensive.
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
And so it turns out that I really like how certain material paints and things play on to canvas, and so like yeah, this stuff. So I would find this and be like, oh, I gotta try that, and then bring it back, and you know, another thing that I've been getting into is with chalk. Chalk is such a thing of like back when we were kids on the sidewalk and stuff, but like putting that on and then applying, you know, this butcher's block stuff, the way it interacts with each other is really fun and cool to watch. But yeah, so like I mean, I could talk about this stuff all day. So I don't want to.
Maybe
like,
towards the end, I'll actually pick up the camera or the phone and walk around with you.
Cool.
And you can just point out a few things.
So like, but like this thing here, you know, this was started. I had a piece of plywood next to the bed, and in between the wall and leaning up against the wall, and then the bed, and I was like on the floor. I had a piece of chalk and was looking through I was first looking through my photos of, you know, I don't have a ton of photos of Ona, and often, you know, she wasn't very keen on she didn't think she was very attractive and didn't like her photo getting taken, so often she would look away, and but it's really made for cool art, like these poses, and but like, so I saw that, and I was like, oh man, I gotta try to paint that. So I had a piece of chalk, and I just started, you know, kind of putting that in, and that was so. And then developing that, or I'll be like that thing, be watching a YouTube video on like different artists, you know, process and stuff, and I that's like been one of the things that I exclusively watch on YouTube is you know, and I found this or YouTube found for me a really great artist that paints kind of like stuff like that, and I was like, I gotta try that. So I you know, yeah, but like, you know, I really do think, not to spend too much, not to beat a dead horse or whatever. I really do think like you seemed to team up with Ona in getting me to realize and adopt or live into, you know, that I'm an artist. I mean, even when you would come out here, like I've always been, I mean, still to this day, I'm kind of critical of how messy it is, and didn't think that it was ever something that would be interesting, or you were like you would like take pictures of like the messiness, and like, man, it was so validating. It was like, I was like, wow, I was like, really, like this is cool. And then as you know, but you were doing that initially when I was still resigned to dying, and I wasn't really interested in learning about other artists and how they do things. I was really just wanting to get out of here. But it turns out that, yeah, like a lot of different artists. I mean, Antonio Giacometti, like his art studio was a total shit show. Like I like, yeah. Anyways, I'm off on it.
This is good. I think that what's so great about the whole doing the podcast for years is it has provided a place to sort of ramble in public.
Yeah.
And to show that, like, one of our classic things that Mason and I bring up all the time is a review we got one time that said, good conversation, but they never landed the plane.
Oh, yeah.
And we've always used that as a reference point to be like, whoa, we don't want to land the plane. Like, let's just be really clear about that. Like, this is not the type of podcast where you're going to come away with like, oh, they helped me figure something out. And that was what was so cool about finding Adam Phillips.
Yeah.
He said, I would never want anybody to walk away thinking I made a point.
Yeah.
I want it to generate thoughts for you.
That's
you go
great.
away saying he stirred something up in me. And I was like, oh man, that really formalized it. But I think there just does seem to be so much in the air in terms of the conversation we were having before, and grad school, and the season of life, and what a self is. Because I really would love to talk about that someday. I mean, I know I'm talking about right now, but the self being something that is somehow emerges through relationship and interaction. And you're bringing up this stuff about like me or Ona.
Yeah.
And of course there's others too, but it does make sense to me just in terms of my emerging theory of what a self is, or what it is to be a person, or curiosity, or any of these things, that it would make sense that, like, if you had been feeling isolated or scared or sad or alone, or you were even lacking a sense of self to get in contact with, it would reemerge as people were in your life.
Yeah.
But also it's strange because I have to write a paper this quarter about I'm taking this class called Human Growth and Development, and the question that we have to do for our final paper is how do people grow? Like, what gets someone to grow? And you're kind of trying to think about it in the context of, what is a therapist up to? Like, what do you want for your patient? How do you get that?
Wow.
And I don't think anybody, there's no definitive answer, but it's an interesting thing to think about. And not growth for you. I'm thinking growth for you in terms of vitality.
Yeah.
I'm not thinking about it in that old school way that I'm in touch with every day of kids in school who are getting slapped on the wrist. I'm not exaggerating. It's every 30 seconds all day. That's your entire life as a kid. You're being told, no, you're doing it wrong. You're not on time. Get to this thing. And so for you to sort of, heavy quotes, come back to life, you really were able to somehow break out of all of that and do things that were life-giving to you.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah.
I know I'm saying a lot, but
no, man, no, I think, yeah, it's heartbreaking, man. What at least our culture has done and is doing to our young, beautiful minds.
Yeah.
I mean, even like the old way of having a relationship with a dog.
Yeah.
And teaching a dog, like you have the only tool is punishment of some form. And it's like, man, there's other ways of going about it where you don't have to just slap them on the face. You could train them with treats and
right.
Affirmations. Like what if we lived in a world where that was more the way of I was just gonna say correcting, but
All right, I'm learning a lot about recording because I keep running out of storage. I'm recording this on my iPhone, everybody. So don't judge me.
Well, no, it'll be good
Someday I'll get a
because then
fancy
in
camera.
the interim,
I'm trying not to overthink it.
in the interim, you can cut to like me talking about my art,
Yeah,
and stuff.
There you go.
Neat.
So what were we saying? You came back to life through art. That sounds so.
How dare you?
Yeah. You go. You came back to life through art. Okay. But I do think we were saying things about, how does someone heal or grow or change?
Yeah.
And I do think art has played a role in you wanting to be around, you being interested in life, you being interested in.
I mean, it's the thing. It's the reason why I'm still alive. Yeah. So in a very real way, like art saved my life. I mean, like literally, like yeah. I would be out of here if I didn't have painting and you and others.
Jesus. I guess one thing I would say, just to continue to affirm this space, is in a way, I always aesthetically, and I don't know what Mace would say about this, have thought about No Small Thing in this way as a concept. Mace and I made some art one night before recording an episode to sort of get inspired, and I made a brain with paint exploding out of it.
Wow.
And that was my image for what No Small Thing was. But it felt like, and it feels like, and what I think I want it to be, and this is just speaking in the language of metaphor, clutter. Our brain is so cluttered.
Yeah.
And to pretend that it's all organized, or to try to organize it, or to even try to get your mind around something is a little stressful. I mean, somebody last night was asking me about the Enneagram, and I'm like, whether it's psychoanalysis or theology or art or anything, the idea that I'm going to nail it down, I'm going to get it all organized in my brain.
Right.
And
isn't that crazy?
Yeah. And I would want No Small Thing to feel this way. I'd want the conversations to feel this way. I don't want it to feel like, honestly, I think the anti No Small Thing vibe would be the Huberman Lab. It's not bad, and I have listened to the Huberman.
Yeah.
And I like Huberman for whatever, but he's got his tucked in black shirt.
Yeah,
everything is protocols.
Yeah,
and he's taking notes.
Yeah,
and he's putting it in bullet points.
Yeah,
and he even came out with a book called Protocols. It's like rules, formulas.
Yeah.
And even having the conversation, the tone and the sound and the spirit and the vibe sound very formal.
Formal, yeah.
So I'm speaking with an expert today, and,
yes.
and you're going to tell me some things, and I'm going to write it down, and I'm going to give that to my audience. And I'm like,